ክቡራትና ክቡራን ተመልካቾቻችን እንደምናላችሁ ከዚህ ከፌርፋክስ የቴሌቪዥን ስቱዲዮም የከበረ ሰላምታ ይድረሳችሁ። ተመልካቾቻችን ባለፈው ፕሮግራም ዋይት ሃውስ ሆኜ በሰራው ፕሮግራም አንድ የዋይት ሃውስ ጋዜጠኛ ይዤ ቀርባለሁ ባልኩት መሰረት ይዤላችሁ ቀርብ ያለው ይህ በቲጂ ኢትዮጵያን ብሮድካስቲንግ የዘጋጀ የሚቀርብላችሁ የቴሌቪዥን መርሃ ግብር ነው። አዘጋጅና አቅራቢ መስፍን በዙ ነኝ። ተመልካቾቻችን እንግዲህ እኔ ይሄንን የቴሌቪዥን ፕሮግራም ወይንም ደግሞ ሚዲያ የማራምደው በፓርት ታይም በሆነ ሁኔታ ነው። እንደ ሙሉ ስራዬ አላስኩትም። የትርፍ ጊዜን እየተጠቀምኩ ነው የምሰራው። ዛሬ ግን ዋይት ሃውስ ውስጥ ያው ሙሉ ስራውን ያዘውን ጋዜጠኛ ይዤ ቀርብ ያለው ስለዚህ ጋዜጠኛ ብዙ መናገር እችላለሁ። ሳይመን አቴባ ይባላል። የቱዴይስ ኒውስ አፍሪካ ጋዜጠኛ ነው። የዋይት ሃውስ ቺፍ ኮሬስፖንደንት እና ያው ይሄ የጋዜጠኛ ስራው ሙሉ ስራ ነው። ብዙ የዋይት ሃውስ ባለስልጣኖችን ያገኛል። ስቴት ዲፓርትመንት ባለስልጣኖችን ያገኛል። ከዛም አልፎ ደግሞ በዓለም አቀፍ ድርጅቶች ከሄድን ደግሞ ብዙ ባለስልጣኖችን ያገኘ ያወራል እና በሱ ላይ በጣም ፍላጎት ያደረብኝ ምንድነው ያው አፍሪካዊ እንደመሆኑ መጠን ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ብዙ ይቆረቆራል፣ ስለ አፍሪካ ብዙ ይቆረቆራልና ዛሬ ብዙውን ከሱ ነው የምንሰማው እና እኔ ብዙ አላወራም። ያው ነግሬዋለሁ። መጀመሪያ በአማርኛ አንተን ላስተዋውቅ ብዬ ነው። ሳይመን, welcome to Fairfax Studio.
Thank you for having me, Mesfin.
You're very welcome, and introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, I know it's always really hard to introduce yourself, but my name is Simon Ateba. I'm a full-time journalist in Washington, D.C. I'm the chief White House correspondent for Today News Africa. Our publication, as you know, focuses on one thing: U.S.-Africa relations. And so that's why I've been interested in, you know, the peace, the conflict and the peace agreement in Ethiopia. And for the past 2 years, I've been covering the conflict in Ethiopia seriously every day. Yeah. And I think I've asked more questions to the Biden administration at the White House than any journalist on earth. And so I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that we can, you know, talk a little bit about the conflict, the 2 years for me covering the conflict from, you know, when it started to, you know, the peace accord and in South Africa and the Nairobi Declaration in Kenya.
Very good. As you said, you know, you are involved asking question to the White House press secretary before she was Jane, now Karen. But I think this, when was it? When
on Tuesday.
Karen, is that Tuesday? She said, Simon, that's enough.
Yes.
Can you please, before I go to the topic, can you please? I mean, she was really angry, but
yeah. So we had, you know, we had a small clash. On Tuesday, Dr. Anthony Fauci, you know, the respected medical doctor, everyone loves him around the world. He can be controversial in the U.S., but he was making his last appearance at the White House. He was his last day after.
Oh, was he there on Tuesday?
He came on Tuesday, and he made his last appearance to, you know, at the White House, at the podium. And there was a journalist from the Daily Caller who tried to ask him about the origins of COVID-19. As you know, COVID-19 in the U.S. has killed more than 1 million people. Mm-hmm. And many people want to know what was the real origin of COVID-19? What did Dr. Fauci and the people, the medical establishment in the U.S. know about the virus? Where did it come from? And so Karine Jean-Pierre didn't want to allow her to ask the question. She dressed her down, and I intervened, and I told her, oh, she had a valid question, because that was Dr. Fauci's last last press briefing at the podium at the White House, and it escalated, and he was everywhere on Fox News, on ABC News, on
Flash.
Yeah, and I even had to leave WhatsApp because I had hundreds of stories and thousands of tweets and millions of people watching, the exchange on YouTube, on Facebook, and I had to take a break from WhatsApp. Like yesterday, I took a break from WhatsApp because I was receiving too many messages. But my focus at the White House is not just, COVID, and it's not just about the US. Our focus at the White House at Today News Africa is the relationship between the US and Africa. And I don't just do it at the White House. I ask questions regularly at the WHO press briefing.
We're gonna come back to that.
And also because, and even when I attend the WHO press briefing or the UN or all the international organization, our focus is the same: advancing the interests of the US and of Africa, and aligning that interest with the interests of the other countries of the US, because any relationship that is not mutually beneficial cannot last for a long time. So again, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And let's watch Simon's clash with White House Press Secretary.
Dr. Fauci, only 13% of...
Hold on one second. We have a process here. I'm not calling out on people who yell. And you're being disrespectful to your colleagues, and you're being disrespectful to our guests. I will not call on you if you yell, and also you're taking time off the clock because Dr. Fauci has to leave in a couple of minutes. I'm done. I'm not getting into a back and forth with you. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Dr. Fauci,
but she's asking a great question.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
She's asking a valid question. You ask your question, you should allow her to ask a
Go ahead,
question.
Jeremy.
She's asking a valid
Jeremy.
question, Dr. Fauci, on the origin of COVID-19.
It is not your turn. It is not your turn.
You can't on the same people. That's the thing. You can't read a press briefing. You need to call from people across the room. She has a valid question. She's asking about the origin of COVID-19.
I hear the question.
And Dr. Fauci is the best person to answer
I hear your question, but we're not doing this the way you want it. This is the disrespectful. It is. I'm done. Simon, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you right now. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. You're taking time away from your colleagues.
Let us go back to where?
Ethiopia.
Very good. So there are too many journalists at the White House, but most of the time you and me are the one who ask questions about Ethiopia. Why don't you say briefly about how you feel about the conflict in Ethiopia?
Yeah. Thank you, Mesfin. So the first thing I want to say is that for people watching us, right, when it comes to the White House, the press briefing at the White House is one of the highlights of any administration in the US. And the press briefing provides an opportunity to ask questions about anything on earth. And so there are these journalists ask about the sea, the gas prices, politics, and any topic. If you can ask a question about any topic at the White House, I don't really know where you can ask it. And so usually the people who are at the White House, they focus on the domestic politics.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. So if they ask like 20 questions, 18 of those or 19 of those questions will be about the US, and then maybe the US and another foreign country.
Europe.
Yeah, but most times it has nothing to do with Africa. And that's where you and I come in. And that's why for the past 2 years, since the conflict in between the federal government of Ethiopia and the TPLF started, I have focused mainly on that conflict. I've asked more questions at the White House, at the WHO press briefing, and in different other gatherings than any other journalist international journalists on the planet, and it's not about boasting. That's what has happened.
No, that's a fact.
Yeah, because and the reason I did it, I'm not connected to Ethiopia. I was born in Cameroon, grew up in Nigeria, born in Cameroon, travel across West Africa, covering, all kinds of, stories across West Africa. But Ethiopia is one of the most consequential countries in Africa. Look at the history. The only African countries that didn't allow itself to be colonized. The second most populous country. And Ethiopian people, they are also very beautiful people. I should have married an Ethiopian woman. They are so beautiful and they are so bright. And here in the US, the Ethiopian population is one of the most powerful immigrant populations in the US. They have everything, very involved in politics, in business, in restaurant. Ethiopian food in the US is one of the most recognized, among Africa or any immigrant, delicacy food in the US. And so Ethiopia is important. Ethiopia is the pride of Africa, or used to be before the conflict. And I hope that it may go back to that state. So Ethiopia is powerful. Ethiopia is important. Ethiopia is one of the best countries in Africa in terms of anything intellectual and business. And so to me, when I ask those questions at the White House, I can even go back to history, to 1884, the Berlin Conference. Everyone in Ethiopia knows that at that conference, that was when they decided to partition or, share Africa among themselves. But Ethiopia said, no, we are not doing that. And Ethiopians, they know their history more than I do. I read books, I interview people, I ask questions to the administration, I read documents, I try to go to people who have the right information, but I can never claim to know the history or the challenges that Ethiopians are going through better than them. But as a journalist, my job is to, work for peace. Because people seem to forget that a journalist is also an agent of peace. And the reason I've been asking those questions, some of them have not been very good questions when it comes to complimentary questions, when it comes to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Because, maybe we are going to talk about this. I wasn't receiving, even now I'm not receiving any information. I don't receive any press statement from the Ethiopian Federal Ministry or the Ministry of Communication. I don't, even when I send emails and try to contact them, is radio silence, which is unfortunate because when there is war and one of the victims is truth, and when you don't provide information to the people who have access to authorities, who can ask the right question to the people, what you are doing is you are actually undermining yourself. And so to me, if you ask me, I believe that the Ethiopian federal government has totally failed when it comes to communication. I cover the White House. I've asked more questions than any other journalist on the planet to the White House, to the WHO, everywhere about Ethiopia, the Ethiopian conflict. But I don't have access to the Ethiopian government. I don't receive their statement. And so, and that's why I don't blame people who don't have the full information, because what you need to do is you need to have information from the TPLF and have information from the federal government of Ethiopia, and then have information from independent sources that allows you to have an idea of what's going on. But when you don't get information from the Ethiopian federal government, what happens is you may not have the full story, and they may blame you for not having the full story when actually they failed miserably in doing their job. And it's been unfortunate that I've spent years and years, asking about Ethiopia and trying to contact them, and only to realize that it was total inefficiency. And it's sad because Ethiopia is one of the best countries in Africa. It's one of my best countries. The people are intelligent, the people are bright, Ethiopian people are even handsome. Like, when you see them, you know that, okay, maybe not as handsome as me. but they're handsome, they're intelligent, they're, good business people, they're even kind. The Ethiopian people that I met in DC, they are kind to you, they are ready to, and all of them from both sides. Like, when I've seen people who were like supporters of the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, very nice people, they came to the White House one day, and that was the first time I saw Ethiopians dance.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen that.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen that. And I was amazed when I see them dance, and they were kind, they were ready to talk. And then I met people from the TPLF supporters, and then they were kind. And I couldn't understand why these two groups cannot actually come together. And so I said, no, I need to do something. I have received more information from the TPLF, and I've written more stories from the TPLF's perspective, because I don't have access to the federal government of Ethiopia and to the people in charge, even though I am the person asking questions to authorities in the US and across, the international community. So which is sad.
Hey, Simon, when you say that the Ethiopian government has failed when it comes providing information, I mean, did you get
okay.
I haven't finished my question. Did you receive any payment from TPLF?
No, never. Listen, we don't.
The reason I'm saying that whenever you say something that oppose or the Ethiopian government, or when you say something that supports TPLF, people don't concentrate on the information. They immediately, this guy is telling something bad about the Ethiopian government. Okay, he's getting paid by the TPLF. Yeah. I just brought to you that just to make a joke, but I know that you are, I have known you for a long time, and you are really, really a true journalist, because you are asking a question about Ethiopia because you are concerned about not only Ethiopia, about Africa, because the conflict in Ethiopia is affecting other African countries. So what you are doing is through journalism, and then I thank you for that, and just continue.
Yeah. So I want to say something about, the money and the integrity.
Please.
So what happens is, if you begin to ask people for money, you lose the integrity.
And the respect. That's right.
You lose the respect. If you do your job very well, money will come, and it will come in a dignified way. I don't receive any money from any TPLF person. I don't receive any money from anyone from the federal government of Ethiopia. I don't receive any money from the White House, from the Biden administration, from the US government. I don't receive any money from the WHO, from the UN, from anywhere. I do my job. The way we raise our money, since you asked, we raise our money. If you go to todaynewsafrica.com, we raise our money through subscription, through contribution, and those contributions go through Google. Google set up our application for people to subscribe and to donate. I don't know them. I don't need to know them. And then through advertisement. If you go to todaynewsafrica.com/advertise, that's how we raise our money. And so that's the best way, because you see, if you want to do good journalism, you need to be financially independent, and you need to be financially comfortable.
Exactly.
And I thank God that I have enough money. Like I still need contributions.
Exactly.
I still need subscription and advertisement, but I have enough money to take care of myself and take care of my family. I don't need someone to pay me to do a story.
If you do that, then what you do is
you lose your integrity,
you
and then
and then you're telling lies.
You're telling lies, and then people don't respect you anymore. And that's why that was about 2 weeks ago. I got in touch with two types of people. A TPLF backed organization in DC.
Is that about after you post Obasanjo's?
No, that was even before. That was before the Obasanjo. We get back to it. Yeah.
That question.
I got in touch with two groups. One group from the support the federal government of Ethiopia and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and then the other group that support TPLF. I asked them to send opinion pieces to me to react to the peace deal. That was a day after the peace agreement was signed on November 2nd in South Africa. The TPLF sent me their own statement, which I published. If you go to todaynewsafrica.com, just check TPLF, you will see all the stories. The person from the Ethiopian federal government, or those who stand for them, they kept telling me we send today, we send tomorrow, and eventually they didn't send it.
So to clarify this, the statement or the opinion you received, it is from the TPLF supporters here or just from the TPLF officials?
No, the TPLF organization, NGO in DC, not official. They are there to advocate for TPLF, which is
their opinion is whatever TPLF tell them.
So they are there to advocate for, and so I got from that side, but I didn't get from the other side.
Anything from the Ethiopian side.
And even I've gone as far as even going on Facebook and trying to get to show you how desperate I was. Like, okay, how do I get in touch with the Ethiopian? I send an email, I can't receive anything. Okay, let me go to the Federal Ministry of Information Facebook page, official Facebook page, and try to email, write and see if someone will get back to me. And I realized how difficult it was. And I think it has to do with lack of understanding.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Simon. Did you provide your contact information, such as email, to the government of Ethiopia, especially the government communication service?
Yeah. So I've taken, to be totally transparent and honest with you, I've tried everything. I've tried everything possible. And so you realize that it's even really hard to even get in touch with them. Listen, the fact that you have a press release, you publish it on your website. No one sees it. The fact that you have a press release, you publish it on your Facebook page. A lot of journalists may not see it. So if you're a good public relation person for the government, if your job is to communicate true information for the federal government of Ethiopia, clarified misunderstanding, what you need to do is you need to identify the people who are actually doing journalism. You need to identify people like me who are there asking questions about the conflict of Ethiopia to the American authorities every day. You need to get in touch, say, hey, Simon, and I don't want anything from them. I don't need you to pay me. I don't need any money from you. What I need is, when I receive a statement from the TPLF, I need to receive a statement from the federal government of Ethiopia. And then then I can have a balanced story. But I realized that it's really hard to have it from the Ethiopian federal government. That's why I talked about failure of, to communicate properly, failure of identifying the influential journalists, international journalists who are actually covering the conflict. And that failure has resulted in what we have now, where sometimes most times people don't have the full information. You know, usually when there's a breaking news, when you read the story a week or 2 weeks after, you realize that what you knew 2 weeks ago is not quite exactly what was fact 2 weeks ago, is maybe different from the fact that you have 2 weeks after. And so what you need to do as the government of Ethiopia is to be totally transparent, to identify the people who are influential and who are covering the conflict, and to supply them accurate information. And not just Reuters or AP, because that's what they do in Africa. You know, you still have that inferiority complex. I ask more questions at the White House about Ethiopia than Reuters, than AP, than all of them combined. So why won't you get in touch with the person who is doing that and give them the right information than give information to a guy you believe that he's superior? And I think it's a psychosomatic, a psychological problem that we still have in Africa, and that's really quite unfortunate. Yeah.
So a few days or weeks ago, I talked to one of the government officials in Ethiopia regarding this information.
Yeah.
And the response I get was, we published it on Facebook, online, and they can get it from there. What will be your response?
No, that's I don't want to use a bad word because I respect authorities.
Yeah, we do.
But I believe there is it's stupidity and it's ignorance. You see, journalists are busy. Daily news breaks all the time. If you expect them to come to your website, to come to your Facebook page, to read what you publish, you're missing it. When there's war, one of the first casualties is truth.
Exactly.
You have misinformation, disinformation, propaganda from all sides. And I'm saying when there's war anywhere. And so what you need to do is, the best way to correct what you believe is misinformation or disinformation is with fact. You need to give people fact. You need to correct the record. You need to get in touch with the people who are covering the conflict. You need to do background calls. You need to invite them. You need to talk to them. Like, one of the reasons the US is the most powerful country on earth.
Yeah.
It's information. Information is gold. One of the reasons why Facebook is one of the biggest companies on earth, it's information, data. That's your name, what you do, what you like, where you go. That's information is everything. But I feel like it seems like we don't really understand it. We don't understand that perception is as important as reality. Impression is as important as the fact. When you don't give people the right information and they've concluded that you are killing TPLF, Tigrayan, innocent civilians,
Exactly.
no one will be happy with you because, listen, ultimately, the federal government of Ethiopia wants to have a good relationship with the US.
You remember when we were at the White House, you asked me, whenever I get a chance to ask a question,
Yeah.
whether at the White House or at the State Department, I ask a question. But one day you asked me, remember, did you work for the Ethiopian government?
Yeah, I thought that you work for the Ethiopian government.
Why was that?
No, because, you asked, I saw you alone have done more for the Ethiopian government and for the Ethiopian people than any single Ethiopian that I know in the communication sphere in Washington, D.C. You have attended, you've asked questions at the State Department, at the White House. Tough question, controversial question, some question that they don't want to answer.
Exactly.
And so I thought that maybe you work for the government until you clarified. And you told me, no, if you work for the government, I wouldn't have come here. Because then you'd be for the Ethiopian government and then you just, try to, I don't want that. I want to have a conversation with someone like you, someone who has done so much. I don't know if they realize it, like if the people in Ethiopia realize how much sacrifice you've made. If they realize how many times you've asked questions contradicting the narrative of the government. I don't know if they realize it. And that's the job of a journalist. Listen, I can go on and on, but if you want to be a good journalist, you have to put truth and the people first. Truth and the people first.
Exactly.
You need to be kind. You need to understand that it doesn't benefit anyone for the second most populous country in Africa, one of the richest countries in Africa, to be destroyed by war. The only country that has been the pride of Africa, with intelligent people, beautiful people, amazing people. You don't want that country to be destroyed. And so when I hear from the UN and from different international agencies that, listen, there's a blockade around Tigray and civilians are being killed. If you're a journalist, you trust the UN, like it's a news source. Like as a journalist, you say, okay, when the UN says something, it must be true. If an international organization says something, it must be true. But you want to confirm from the federal government of Ethiopia so that you can have their side of the story and be able to balance it. Because balance it, that's what journalism is, balance it. But if you have only that side and you don't hear from the other people, there's no journalist who will say it's a good thing to kill civilians. There's no journalist who will say that it's a good thing to have a blockade that keeps reportedly 6 million people sealed off. No journalists. So you will have bad press. And when you have bad press, you have consequences. You have the US against you, the EU against you, and different countries that can even be for you won't be able to do business with you because they do business with the US. You have AGOA taken away from you. People who are doing business with the US, they can't do business with the US anymore.
With Ethiopia.
The Ethiopian who are doing business with they can't do business with the US anymore. So you need to be smart. You need to communicate properly. You need to identify the people who are influential people who need that information, who can now spread the information among the people. Not just people on Facebook, not someone tweeting. You need people who are focusing on the conflict. People who are asking questions, challenging the narrative. You need people who talk to both sides. I don't want to be there to say, oh my God, the Ethiopian government is the best on earth. Oh my God, the TPLF, they are the best on earth. No. Once you do that, you've lost it.
Exactly.
TPLF will not talk to me anymore. The Ethiopian, if I'm just against them, or I'm just against the federal government of Ethiopia, they won't talk to me anymore, and then you can't do your job. What you need to do is, you need to have access to all sides. You need to talk to both sides, and you need to talk to independent people. And when there are misinformation and disinformation and fake news and falsehood. What you need to do, if you are TPLF or the federal government of Ethiopia, what you need to do is to correct the record. You need to, and the way you do it is simple. You need to send people the right information in English if you want to reach the American audience.
Exactly.
Don't just write things in your language. Your language is great.
Good point.
Your language is great for your people, but you also need the support of the international community. You don't want to be at war with the US. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, he doesn't want that. He wants to have good relationship with the US. Even when they don't agree on many things, you need to keep that line of communication. You need to, even when you can't talk to them directly, you need to have people, intermediary, people like me, who can say, okay, no, this what the Ethiopian government is saying. This is what TPLF is saying. What's your reaction? That's how you ask them. Mm-hmm. But when one side decide not to do their job, which is the federal government of Ethiopia when it comes to communication and I'm talking about international communication. We are talking about the international community, the perception. How do people see it? It doesn't matter what you believe that the conflict, the truth is. How do people in the international community perceive the conflict? How do people see you? You won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2019. How do people see you in the international community? And most times, if you go and check, people may see you that way because they don't have full information. And it's your duty and the people around you, people who are assigned to do it. And I know from my sources that there is an entire building in Ethiopia where they are doing communication. But that communication doesn't reach here in the US, which is really sad.
Very true. Let me say something in Amharic. ክቡራትና ክቡራን ተመልካቾቻችን በመወያየት ላይ ያለነው ከሳይመን አቴባ ጋር ነው የዋይት ሃውስ ቺፍ ኮሬስፖንዳንት ፎር ቱዴይስ አፍሪካ ነው እንግዲህ እሱ በተለይ ኢትዮጵያን በተመለከተ በጣም ጥሩ ጥያቄ የሚጠይቀው ጥቅም ወይንም ደግሞ ሌላ ነገር ኖሮት አይደለም ያው አፍሪካዊ በመሆኑ ሰላም ስለሚፈልግ ነውና በተለይ ይህንን ፕሮግራም የምታዩ ባለስልጣኖች በተለይ በመንግስታችን በኩል ይሄ ኢንፎርሜሽንን በመስጠት መረጃን በመስጠት በኩል ነው ትልቅ ድክመት እንዳለ እሱን ሪኮግናይዝ አርጋችሁ ለመሻሻል ሞክሩ ምክንያቱም እሱ ብቻ አይደለም እየተናገረ ያለው ሌሎችም ዋይት ሃውስ በገባበት ጊዜ የሚናገሩት ነገር ነው እና አሁን ልክ እዚህ ዋይት ሃውስ እና ሌሎችም እንደሚያደርጉት መረጃ በተለይ ተሰሚነት ላላቸው መልቀቅ ያስፈልጋል እና አዝ ቀደም ሳይመን እንደተናገረው ይገት ነው ኢንፎርሜሽን ከቲፒኤልኤፍ ያገኛል ከኢትዮጵያ መንግስት ግን አያገኝም ለምንድን ነው ያዋሸው he doesn't have any reason to lie ስለዚህ እንደባካችሁ አሁንም ቢሆን ለኢትዮጵያ ስትሉ ተሻሻሉ ራሳችሁን ዲፌንድ አታድርጉ አዎ መንግስታችን መረጃን በተመለከተ ትልቅ ድክመት አለው ያንን አሻሽሉ And let me go back to the article you posted a few days ago. It's about former President Obasanjo who wrote an article. What is the name of Semaphore?
Yeah, and it's a new publication in the US.
No, but there are a lot of people read that article.
Yeah.
Obasanjo wrote blaming TPLF for starting the war, and then you publish that one and you get a lot of objection for that. But tell me about the post and the interaction you have.
Yeah, so the former president of Nigeria is someone that I know. I cover his administration when I used to live in Lagos.
Okay.
And so I know him personally. I know him on the last day when he left office.
Wow, okay.
When he left Abuja, which is the capital of Nigeria, and he came to Lagos. The plane who came to drop him in Abuja,
Hey, we are talking to a great journalist. Continue.
And I remember him getting to Lagos Lagos International Airport, and he has spent 8 years in office.
Okay.
And that was in 2007, yes. And he was leaving office. The final flight that took him from the presidential palace to Lagos Airport. And I used to cover aviation then in Lagos. And I remember being with Obasanjo and so seeing him, he was like, today's your last day. So he is a blunt person. Anyone who knows him, he says things as he sees them. He says things as he believes them to be. And so he published an opinion this week in Semaphore.
Semaphore, yeah.
Semaphore is a new American publication that is rising. He has, hundreds of, journalists that I know who work there. I know our colleague from the Daily Caller who was at the White House now works there now. And it was an opinion where he was trying to say that the peace deal that was signed in South Africa on November 2nd wasn't perfect, but it should be implemented. But in that opinion, he talked about how the war started. And he said that it was when the TPLF attacked, the Ethiopian military. And in reaction, it was a reaction to that the Prime Minister now decided to punish his word, not my word, to punish TPLF for attacking the military, and then they escalated everything. And the people from the TPLF did not receive it very well.
They don't like it.
Yeah, of course they don't like it because they believe that Obasanjo omitted many facts. They believe that they've been attacked before. I won't go into it now, but that's what they believe. They believe that they've been attacked before, and they believe that they also suffer more during the conflict with the blockade and with the deaths, with the people who are being displaced. And so they were not happy. The story has been seen by 10, I think as at today, I think it has been seen by like tens of thousands. That was like when I was coming here, like maybe 45,000 people have seen it. And so it's a big story.
It is.
And so that's what I'm saying. When there has been a big disagreement in the conflict. Who started the war? When you talk to TPLF, they say that the Ethiopian government actually started the war, not just on that day, but the policies and, different things. But when you talk to people from the federal government, they tell you clearly that the TPLF started the war with that attack, and that, the federal government cannot fold its hands and allow the country or federal forces to be killed or attacked by the TPLF. And so it's hard for me to even talk about it, because to me, I'm already thinking about the peace agreement and the implementation. Who started the war, who did what first, who had which policy. It's almost irrelevant right now, because right now people have died on all sides. people in Tigray, people in Afar, people in Amara, people in different places. People have been displaced, and people who didn't die have lost in different ways. The
At least one family member,
the AGOA agreement has been terminated or suspended. So people Ethiopians who do business with the US can't do it. And when you go to war, so the money you should spend on infrastructure, on school, education, healthcare, you can't spend it because you are fighting. And the cloud and the respect that Ethiopia had for at least for the past few decades as a country that was growing economically. If you check what the IMF and the World Bank, the projections, you realize that everything is going down the drain because, tourists are not coming as they used to come before. No one wants to go to a place where people are fighting. You don't manufacture as you can manufacture in peacetime. So that's what the former president said, that the TPLF, attacked the military, and then in reaction, the federal government of Ethiopia attacked them. But the TPLF disagrees. They believe that there were direct and indirect causes to the war. But I will leave it at that.
We have been talking for such a long time. Let me go to the final question. I may. As I said when I introduced you to my audience, you have been all over the place. Not only at the White House, you have been also attending the World Health Organization WHO press conference often, and you've been asking difficult questions. Tell me about one incident that you asked Dr.
Okay, no, there have been so many. So,
but I think the final one, you asked him, I remember you asked him a question about the allegation
of using his position to...
tell me about that.
Okay, so I have been completely honest with all sides. I personally like the WHO, they are health expert, and I respect them. So I've asked different types of questions. I've asked them about, humanitarian access to Tigray. I've asked them about what are you doing to, send vaccine to Ethiopia during that time. I've asked them about Tigray many times, because that was the main thing. Because as I said, if you're a journalist and you hear that people are being sealed off and they don't have humanitarian access, you won't fold your arms and you say that that's okay. But I've also asked him difficult questions. For instance, I asked him, I think I'm the only one who asked him that question about, are you using your position, as the WHO Director General to advance or promote the TPLF? And he denied it. And that was important.
And he took a lot of time to respond to your question.
Yeah. He took time, and that was a good question because people were telling me, Dr. Tedros is using his position, to against the Ethiopian federal government and for the TPLF, and
if you don't mind,
no, let me land first. And I felt like it was my duty to ask him, to have him on the record, to explain his position, to explain clearly to everybody whether he was using his position or whether he was promoting the TPLF. And he said I had no interest. He said that his interest was, for people to have humanitarian access, that he has done that for Yemen, he has done that for Syria, he's done that for other parts of the country, for other countries in the world.
I know Dr. Tewodros Adhanom personally, and especially when my brother-in-law died, Dr. Tewodros was a health minister, and he was supporting my sister since her husband died, and I really appreciate what he did. But right now, and most people blame him, he's only focusing about the suffering of Tigrayans. Yes, the war hurt Tigrayans more than any other people in Ethiopia. So people asking a question, why he focused only on Tigrayan people? Amharan people getting hurt, the Afaran people getting hurt because of this war. So your question was very important, and if you don't mind, let me show the video that the question you asked Dr. ቴዎድሮስ.
Thank you, Tarek. Thank you for taking my question. This is Simon Ateba with Today News Africa in Washington, D.C. I personally believe that the WHO DG has been addressing health issues from around the world, not just in Ethiopia or Tigray. I just wanted him to address the accusation that he's using his position at the WHO to influence opinion on Tigray, where he comes from. Is that the case? And if you can also comment on Dr. Anthony Fauci, who will be leaving his position in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay, thank you, Simon. I think you could answer that question because you have been following our press regularly, and we comment on any country about health situation or health conditions, be it Syria or now Ukraine, Yemen, and other places. For instance, if I bring similar conditions like Tigray, if you take Syria, there are people who didn't have access to humanitarian aid, and WHO, as part of the other UN agencies, and myself, as one of the heads of the agencies, we have been pushing for unfettered access. Not only unfettered access, we have been even pushing for a corridor to keep a corridor to Syria from Turkey. On Ethiopia's issue, when we push for unfettered access, the responsibility is given to the Ethiopian government. But in Syria's case, the UN Security Council had decided to have a corridor through Turkey, and the UN has been supportive of this. So we always advocate for unfettered access and, access to medicines, access to food, and people to get the necessary support they need. And we have been doing the same thing in all conditions where there is the same problem. For instance, if you take the Syrian issue, it's resolved because there is another corridor. Even if the Syrian government doesn't want to doesn't want to give access, there is another corridor through which those who need access get access. So I don't know why this is seen as a special, the Tigray one, but it's exactly the same. And I will repeat again, there should be unfettered access to support the more than 6 million people of Tigray. What makes it even very unique, the Tigray situation, is it's completely sealed off by both Ethiopian and Eritrean governments. So not only access to food is limited, it's trickling now, and access to medicine is very limited. Our programs, HIV program, TB program, has collapsed, and people on chronic follow-up, hypertension, diabetes, they don't get medicine, so that has also collapsed. And many people that could be saved are dying because there are the more than 6 million people are completely sealed. What they get is a trickle. But not only that, not only the food and medicine, they can't have even access to their own money because banking service has been blocked for more than almost 2 years now. I told you last time, imagine if you were prevented by your own government from accessing your own money, Simon. Not just 6 million people, even one individual would be, I don't think would survive. You would survive. And then not only banking services, there is no telecom services. That's also blocked by the government, and electricity and other basic services. I will tell you my own story. I have many relatives there. I want to send them money. I cannot send them money. They're starving, I know. I cannot help them. I cannot help them. I can help them. I can share from what I have. I cannot do that because they are completely sealed off. I want to speak to them. It's a long time since I have spoken to them. I can't speak to them. I don't know even who is dead or who is alive. Can you tell me any place in the same situation in the world? Simon? Can you tell me? So I'm talking about the 6 million people which are collectively being punished. And I can tell you, the world can do this. It has the means. For instance, the world came together 2 weeks ago and did a very good job in helping Ukraine to export its grains. Okay, that's a good job. But why can't we also push, as a global community, so that the 6 million people can get food to eat, medicines to be treated, and telecom to talk to their people, bank to access their money, and media so that they can speak and the world can know about their problems. Why can't we do that? Why can't we push for unfettered access? So unfettered access, asking for unfettered access for the opening of basic services, and for also asking the Ethiopian government and the Eritrean government who are enforcing the siege systematically to end the siege is part of my job. I did it for Yemen. I have traveled there. I did it for Syria. I'm doing it for Ukraine. You remember my statement several times. All the reports we have been saying since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And we asked Russia to end the war many times. And we're also helping. What's different about Ethiopia? We're not actually doing as much as what we did in Syria. Maybe it's time to ask for another corridor to help the 6 million people, like what is being done in Syria. We can even push for that, of course, because this is about humanity, nothing else. I have no interest. That's my interest. And I will do it anywhere. I will do it for Yemen, I will do it for Ukraine, I will do it for Syria, I will do it for other countries. And I think, Simon, you know better, you have been following us, you can say it yourself, and others are also following. That's it. It's about humanity. I'm one of them. I am one of the 6 million people. That's personally hurtful, very painful. But at the same time, I'm doing it because 6 million people are human beings. Because I'm one of them, conflict of interest, whatever, what I should do, I should do. Like I do for others. I even did more for others. I think that's very, very clear. That's very clear.
How do you feel about the response that Dr. ቴዎድሮስ gave you?
Okay, so, I usually allow people to speak for themselves, right? I believe that my duty, my job as a journalist is to ask even difficult questions. When there's a WHO press briefing, there are 700, sometimes 1,000 people on the line, and they take 7 questions.
And you are one of them.
And I'm one of them. Usually I'm one of them. And the reason I'm one of them because I ask questions about Africa. And so usually, even though there are 700 people on the line, most of them are from different parts of the world. And some of them in Africa don't follow we're now following COVID and they're happening in Africa the way I am. And so they gave me the opportunity to ask questions. And so I felt like it was my duty to ask him great questions, but also ask him controversial questions, so that he can be the one to clarify. And I think he did. He clarified the way he clarified. People disagreed with him. I met people in DC who disagree with him, who say that no, he's promoting TPLF. But he said that he's not, and I will leave it at that.
Yeah, let the people judge after they see the video. And also, when he came to Washington, D.C., there was also a press conference.
Yes.
At that press conference, you were there, you also asked a question. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so when Dr. ቴዎድሮስ came to Washington, D.C. Sometime this year.
Yeah, it was like a few months ago.
He... because I've been asking questions every day, and, they were very happy to see me. And that's why you can see, even when I talk about them, that's why I said that I respect them, I love them, they are health expert. I know this conflict can bring a lot of tension and can make us even deny the people that we've gotten to know. And so I also asked a question, and also a question on, I think the question was also on Tigray.
Again,
it was also the question on Tigray, and
it took a lot of time to.
Yeah, it took a lot of time. So what we say is, I wasn't born in Ethiopia. I wasn't born in Egypt. I wasn't born in Ghana, Nigeria, or Senegal, or Kenya.
But you were born in Africa.
I was born in Africa. And I believe that it's my duty to talk about Africa, ask difficult questions. So sometimes you may read me, we may write something that is not very favorable to Africa. If there are issues, maybe some people are oppressing people, corruption and all those things, abuse of power, we will write about it. But ultimately, I believe that transparency and honesty and even when you don't have the right information, if you get the right information later, you can still correct the record. So you can read something that I wrote and you're like, oh my God, this guy doesn't like TPLF, or this guy doesn't like the Abiy, or no, that's the information that I had at that particular time. If I have the full picture, because we don't really have the full picture. Like,
you only hear from one side all the time.
We keep hearing, even when we hear, we don't always get the full picture at the same time. Mm-hmm. It takes time. That's why they say that it's like wisdom appears to come when it's too late. Because what you knew 5 years ago is quite different from what you know now. And, it appears that wisdom comes at that time. So I believe that it's my duty to keep, doing my job, asking difficult questions about Africa, trying to promote Africa. And I love the US. That's why at Today News Africa, we decided our main focus is strengthening ties between the US and Africa. And we don't have all the money. We don't have all the resources. I don't have the CNN resources or Reuters or all the other people. I have small resources to take care of myself and my family. But I believe that we are growing, and I believe that we will need more as we keep doing our job. We believe that the resources will come so that we can also have a good international African voice in the US. People who can be unbiased, speak for TPLF, speak for the other Ethiopian, speak for all Nigerian and Kenyan and, all kinds of people. Not just people who we just focus on one country. That's not what I want to do. And so when I asked ቴዎድሮስ that difficult question, even he was moved when I asked that question because no one expected that question. The room was quiet because people were, even at the WHO, people were like, oh my God, what will he say? And then he used the opportunity to clear the air and gave his answer. And I don't disagree with answer. I don't agree. Like, I'm neutral.
You
asked him.
A question, a right question.
Yeah.
Simon, I thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
For coming here to talk about the question I provided to you. And before I end, maybe people are become interested to get subscription from your media. Can you tell about that? How people can get subscription?
Yes, if you just go to, so we rely on subscription, you just go to todaynewsafrica.com/ plant.
We'll put it out.
I'm trying to have the right email,
okay,
but you can.
I think
todaynewsafrica.com/
we put it on the screen.
Plans dash subscription, but I can but we also advertise.
How much it costs? 149 a month or one?
No, for a year. For year, 149 for a year.
I mean, you guys published a lot of information about Africa. So, I mean, I recommend people go to today's
and then
come
and subscribe. Contribute. And one thing that we also do, people can go to todaynewsafrica.com/advertise, and then they can support us that way. That's how we sustain this. It's not about going to a government to say, come and give me money, you begin to say lies. You lose you sustain journalism with subscription, contribution, independent, small contribution for many people, and then from advertisement. The rest, come and give me $1 million and then you buy me, I lose my integrity. I don't want that. Just go to todaynewsafrica.com, subscribe, contribute, and you can have it on the screen, and I will really appreciate it.
Simon Ateba, once again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Before we end, what will be your final thought, especially regarding the peace process in Ethiopia?
So I will say that, as I said before, Ethiopia is one of the most important countries in Africa. And Ethiopians, they are some of the best people in Africa.
Yes.
And like the US and the other people, I would like to see peace returned to Ethiopia.
እንግዲህ እኛ ሰላም እንፈልጋለን። ሰላም ማምጣት የሚችሉት አሜሪካኖች አይደሉም፣ የአፍሪካን ዩኒየን አይደለም፣ ወይም የአውሮፓ ሀገሮች አይደሉም። ሰላም ማምጣት የሚችለው እዛው ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያለው ህዝብ ነው። ሰላም ማምጣት የምትችሉት የኢትዮጵያ መንግስትና የቲፒኤልኤፍ መሪዎች ከልብ ስትደራደሩ ነው። አሁን በየፌስቡኩ የምንሰማው ያው እንግዲህ እውነትም ይሁን ውሸት ስምምነቱ እንዳልተከበረ ነውና እንግዲህ ለህዝቡ የምታስቡ ከሆነ ለትግራይ ህዝብ የምታስቡ ከሆነ ለአማራ ህዝብ የምታስቡ ከሆነ ለኦሮሞ ህዝብ የምታስቡ ከሆነ ለደቡብ በአጠቃላይ ለኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ የምታስቡ ከሆነ በኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያለው ጦርነት ለአንዴም ለመጨረሻ ጊዜ መብቃት አለበት። ለዚህም እንግዲህ እግዚአብሔር ይጨመርበት። እግዚአብሔር ኢትዮጵያ ሀገራችንን ሰላም ያርግልን። Simon, it's very nice of you to give us such a very interesting interview, and this will not be your last.
Thank you.
Okay, even though it's your first time, but this won't be your last. And I appreciate what you're doing at the White House, and you are asking a question which is very, very important to the Ethiopian people. And please continue, and I will also continue to support you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
ክቡራትና ክቡራን ተመልካቾቻችን እስካሁን ይሄ የተከታተላችሁት ከአቶ ሳይመን አቴባ ጋር ያደረኩትን ቆይታ ነበር። አቶ ሳይመን አቴባም ፉል ታይም ጆርናሊስት ነው። ቱዴይስ ኒውስ አፍሪካን የዋይት ሃውስ ቺፍ ኮረስፖንዳንት ነው። ያው በየቀኑ የገባ የዋይት ሃውስን ፕሬስ ሴክሬታሪም ሆነ የአሜሪካንን የጸጥታ ምክር ቤት አባላትን ከባድ ጥያቄ እየጠየቀ የሚሰራ ነው። በተለይ አፍሪካን በተመለከተ በጣም ብዙ ጥያቄ ይጠይቃል እና እንደዚህ የሚያፈራ አይደለም እና ለዓላማው የቆመ ነው። እንግዲህ ልንረዳው ይገባል። በጣም ጥሩ ስራ እየሰራ ነው። ያው ቀደም ብሎ እንደገለጸው እሱ ከማንም ጥቅም አግኝቶ አይደለም። ያው የአፍሪካ ፍቅር ይዞት ነው እንደኛ ኢትዮጵያውያን። እሱም በአፍሪካ ውስጥ ሰላም እንዲኖር ይፈልጋል፣ በኢትዮጵያችን ውስጥ ሰላም እንዲኖር ይፈልጋል እና እናንተም አመስግኑት። ስለተካተላችሁ በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። መስፍን ደዙ ነኝ ከዚህ ከፌርፋክስ ስቱዲዮ። ሰላም።
Good. Thanks. Thank you.